Okay, welcome to this presentation. What we're going to be looking at is whether Othello is a Greek tragedy. And the objectives of today's lesson will be to understand the basic differences between Greek tragedy and Shakespearean tragedy, to see where, why, how Othello could be a Greek tragedy, and to get an overview of what critics say. What makes a play a Greek tragedy? Right, in Greek tragedy we have a tragic hero who is a man of elevated status, and he's good, but he has a tragic fatal flaw. And this leads to his defeat and humiliation and possibly death. There is also a unity of plot. In Shakespearean tragedies, we have lots of Aristotelian features plus the medieval context influence. And also, Shakespeare took narrative tragedy and made it dramatic. He also put subplots, so the plays had lots of small plots interlinked instead of just one main plot. He also used comic elements and put them in tragic context, and he also used prose as opposed to just verse. This is Aristotle. Aristotle said that tragedy is a form of drama exciting the emotions of pity and fear. Its action should be single and complete, presenting a reversal of fortune involving persons renowned and of superior attainments, and it should be written in poetry embellished with every kind of artistic expression. What a load of... The important things in tragedy plays are, in order of importance according to Aristotle, first of all the plot, then the character, a deep characterization. In fact, in Othello, most characters, notably Emilia, Othello and Desdemona, are characterized very deeply and have inner contradictions like real people. Diction, thus how people speak. In fact, in Othello, a sign of tragedy is how Othello starts to speak in a Iago-like diction when he goes into madness. Then thought, how the characters think. Othello is often very reflective, and so that also aids his characterization. Spectacle, this is the equivalent of special effects today, so fighting, stabbing, literally dramatic action. And song, music. There is a willow song inside Othello. And the function would be education as well as entertainment. Plays must also have harmatia, catharsis, and anagnoris. We'll talk about these in 5 minutes. In the exam, you may be asked to plot a graph of the Greek tragedy. Remember that it follows the mountain model. Therefore, time, which is the independent variable, goes on the x-axis and the dependent variable, tension, goes on the y-axis. The climax is exactly halfway through the play. Shakespeare's Aristotelian model plays include Hamlet, King Lear, Macbeth, and Othello. These are the 4 great mind tragedies. We will now look at why and how Othello is one of these. Greek plays must have harmatia. This is a tragic flaw in the tragic hero's character that brings about his downfall. Othello is the typical tragic hero because he is in a high estate position, so he does have, as Aristotle says, a place of dignity to fall from. Othello has a fatal flaw. This is his poor judgment and the fact that he assumes that others are honest, just like him. Iago knows about this fatal flaw in Othello and is keen to exploit it. This is shown by this quote. Iago, the Moor is of a free and open nature, that thinks men honest that but seem to be so, and will as tenderly be led by the nose as asses are. Iago is basically saying the Moor is kind and honest, and he thinks that others are just like him, even if they're not. Therefore, I can control and manipulate him. Some have suggested that Othello's fatal flaw instead is jealousy, and this is exemplified by this quote. Iago saying, "Oh, beware, my lord, of jealousy," and Othello, at the very, very end, saying that he wants to be remembered as one not easily jealous, but being wrought. So Othello wants to be remembered as someone that was not jealous easily, but that was wrongly manipulated and deceived. But this could also be read as Othello knowing that he is jealous and wanting to not be remembered as so. Also, the flaws in the tragic hero also make the character very relatable, human, and thus pitiful. We feel sympathy for him, or we are led to feel sympathy for him at least. Greek plays must also have catharsis. This is a purgation of the audience's emotions so that they feel they have learned something from the play. Indeed, the audience feel a sense of justification and satisfaction with the ending of Othello. When he stabs himself, he is punishing himself, and this is probably the correct punishment. Quotes that support this are also the fact that Othello says, "Why should honour outlive honesty? Let it all go." Honour, he's referring to himself, and honesty, he's referring to Desdemona. So he's saying, I realise I've done wrong, and I don't think that my pride should outlive Desdemona's honesty. I'm going to punish myself. If you think that Othello is a narcissist and an egoistic character, then this quote you can see holds lots of modesty and fairness, since Othello also realised that he has done wrong and he wants to punish himself. Othello also says to himself, "Oh, cursed, cursed slave, whip me, ye devil." Again, he is punishing himself, he is realising he has done wrong, and he is calling himself a slave, so no longer is he being snobby and full of himself and egocentric and proud, he is now reducing himself to a black slave. Also, the purgation of the audience's emotions does not necessarily need to be positive. In fact, the ending is not a happy ending, yet there is a sense that justice has been done, and this gives satisfaction. Finally, we have anagnoris. This is a sort of epiphany or a revelation of fact that was previously unknown to the tragic hero. This makes the tragic hero also go from ignorant to knowledgeable. In the case of Othello, the tragedy is even worse because there's dramatic irony, and so what Othello didn't know, that Desdemona was honest, the audience knew all along. The evidence for anagoresis being in Othello is the fact that Othello realises that his friend, honest Iago, had deceived him all the way, and that Desdemona was indeed honest. The quotes that best support this, I feel, are Emilia's, when she tells Othello, if he, Iago, say so, that Desdemona is cheating on him with Cassio and that she gave the handkerchief to Cassio, who gave it to Bianca, his whore. So, if Iago lied, then may his pernicious soul rot half a grain a day. He lies to the heart. She, Desdemona, was too fond of her most filthy bargain. She's basically saying, if Iago said these things to you, then he's lying. Desdemona loved you, even if you turned out to be worthless. Emilia, to Iago, you told a lie, a damned lie, upon my soul, a life, a wicked lie. Here she is telling Iago in front of Othello that he lied. Emilia then turns to Othello and says, O thou dull Moor, that handkerchief thou speak'st of, I found by fortune and did my husband. So here she's simply saying that she gave the handkerchief to Iago after she casually found it. And it's also incredible how the tension builds up over a long, long period of time with doubts and fluctuation in tension, and then it all comes tumbling down very quickly with short, simple, straightforward explanations. It's almost like what Shakespeare has done is he has built a metaphorical wall. He has built it only to then knock it down. And finally, Emilia says, "More she was chaste, she loved thee cruel more." She's basically saying, look, Desdemona was chaste. She was noble, she was honest, she was respectful. In fact, as we know, Desdemona couldn't even imagine women cheating on their husband. She was madly in love with Othello, and he was cruel to her. Okay, now let's end by looking at a few literary quotations. According to Johnson, Othello is difficult to analyse because the play teaches the truth of human nature to the audience or to the reader, and Shakespeare produces recognisable human types of characters. If they are recognisable, then clearly you can feel sympathy and relate to them, and therefore the play is a classical tragedy. This one is more straightforward. Most of the Shakespearean tragedies generally lead up to an end with the death of the hero. Thus, Shakespeare has created tragic heroes on Aristotelian models. In fact, in the Aristotelian play, the tragic hero often dies as part of his reversal of fortune. This is more straightforward as a quote. This instead explains, in a nutshell, the difference between A.C. Bradley and F.R. Leavis. Bradley sees Othello as a noble figure who is blameless and is only a victim of Iago's treachery. By contrast, F.R. Leavis says that Othello's tragic flaw is his prideful jealousy. If you remember at the beginning of the presentation, we said that some people said that Othello's fatal flaw is his jealousy. This is what F.R. Leavis argues. It is Othello's jealousy that blinds him to the truth of his wife's innocence. This again is an expansion on the previous criticism, basically saying that A.C. Bradley and this other guy, Coleridge, argue that Othello is a noble hero, so remember, tragic hero, tragic of high estate position, who is ruined by the superior diabolic intellect of Iago. F.R. Leavis instead holds that Iago's power in the temptation scene is that he represents something that is inside Othello. So again, F.R. Leavis is saying that the tragic flaw is something that is already inside Othello, and that Iago is only a catalyst, an enzyme, in Othello's downfall. The evidence that F.R. Leavis uses to support his view is the promptness, thus the speed, at which Othello responds to Iago's suggestion of the fact that Desdemona is cheating on him. So this fact that Othello responds so quickly shows that Iago is simply pulling out thoughts that already existed inside Othello. Here are the sources which I use, and this is the end. Thank you very much for watching, and if you can, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe. Julo!